Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm so glad that you're here and that you would choose to take a moment out of your Friday to attend the webinar. I'm really particularly excited for today. We're going to be covering community and diversity. And so thank you for coming on your Friday. Obviously, it's been a hard week across much of the US, and I think it's okay for us to recognize that. And with that, I understand that everything that we're going to talk about today, I think, has a lot of opportunities for application for where the world is at right now. And so I really think that today can help you. I encourage you to take some notes, and I would love to hear from you either throughout it in the chat or afterwards. If you can send me a message and tell me when you try to put some of the strategies that we're going to talk about into practice and how they worked, how the experience went for you. That being said, I also don't want to put realistic expectations on today. We're going to keep it simple, but understand that we don't need to go into the next hour hoping that all of our differences and all of our difficulties and conversations will just cease to exist after we put in 1 hour of training on genuinely connecting with people and building that community amongst diversity in thought and opinion, and maybe people who disagree with you particularly. And so this is a layer in progress towards that, but it's all layers. And I want you to just go into this hour understanding that it is a step in the right direction, but we keep taking steps every day of our life. And so perhaps what you get out of today will be, it'll lead to one good conversation with one person this weekend. And out of that, we learn and begin to continue to take one step after another towards a life of great connections and great community with people who are very different than us. And so much. What excites me, I think, about a session like this is that so much of our satisfaction and our happiness comes down to our expectations. And when we begin to set expectations that are realistic, knowing that everything we do is just a step in front of us, then our happiness increases. And so as you sit wherever you're at today, whether I'm in your headphones and you're doing something else, or whether you are zoned in with your coffee in hand taking notes, out of this, you'll be able to take a realistic step in the right direction here towards community and connection and communication. So it's super great to have great expectations and positive expectations and be encouraging. But this progress is a step-by-step progress. And so if you're taking notes, which I always encourage you to, perhaps you can just write down at the top of those notes one hope that you have from today. So what do you expect out of today? When we understand our expectations, then we are internally happier. And I think the whole world could use a little bit more happiness this week. So what is one hope that you have out of today? Perhaps it's one person that you hope to just be able to have a peaceful conversation with. What are you hoping to achieve out of this from the next hour? Or what are you hoping to do because of the time that you're investing into yourself today? So good for you for investing into yourself. Just a quick flyover plan of what we'll talk about in the next 55 minutes. We're going to go through 7 observations from research that we know in order to begin this work of good conversation, good community, good connection. There's 7 observations that we need to be aware of in order to begin that work. And then off the back of that, I'm going to give you 15 ways that we can all build great community, great connection, and great conversations with people who disagree with us. And this is all based on evidence-based research. So pardon me for not introducing myself sooner for those who don't know me. I am Kelley Castle, and I am a performance psychology practitioner. And I run these webinars most Fridays I'm really excited about next week's, which I'll tell you about at the end of today. I've been planning this one for a long time, and it's an interview with an amazing person who's a mentor of mine. But let's jump right in. So, a few observations right from the top. And these are observations that are truths from research and beliefs that we must consider in order to do this work of community and diversity. So, we must recognize that people are different. People will be different than you. It might seem obvious, but people will think and see things differently than you. And we need to realize that there will always be differences between us, and that this can bring richness and texture and beauty to the world around us. So the difference will always be there. The goal is not to diminish difference, but to recognize it. And remember that while we might tend to think that everyone thinks like us or should think like us, it's simply not the case, nor does it need to be. The second observation is we know that humans are wired for resilience. And so we will get through this no matter what difficulty you are encountering, perhaps with a boss or a teammate or a coworker or a coach or maybe just a family member. Understand that we are wired for resilience, and we are wired to get through difficulty. And so we actually just might need to recognize that and begin to be perhaps a little more gracious to each other. But understand that humans are wired for this work, this hard work of building community and diversity, and we are wired for resilience. And in a moment of stress, which many are feeling right now in this week, we need to remember that humans are wired for resilience and wired to navigate difficult situations and difficult interactions and difficult conversations. So we will make it through. It's a matter of whether we'll make it through surrounded by burnt bridges that perhaps need to be rebuilt, or whether we'll make it through with perhaps some tattered and worn bridges that can still hold the weight that is required for daily life. Third observation is that the strongest teams and the strongest relationships are made up of different people who disagree. The strongest teams are made of people who disagree. And so they're unified in their goals and unified in their efforts, but they are different and they disagree on things. These are the strongest teams. They learn to work together to have healthy conversations and create real bonds and build real community in that diversity, because they know that this effort is well worth it. So understand that when you surround yourself with people who are different than you, and I recommend smarter than you, surround yourself with people who think differently, not just in credentials, but people who perhaps might be a little further down the track than you and are different than you. You'll tend to have good judgment. Fourth observation is character is built on 1,000 little things, including how we interact with people who disagree with us. So character is not one grand, sweeping, nice gesture. But our conversations with people that think and believe differently than us say a lot about our character. It says a lot more than simply our statements of belief or thought. And this trust that comes out of beginning to build from good character, this trust is built from small, layer by layer, moment by moment interactions. Brené Brown, many of you would know, she describes trust as a collection of small marbles over time. And so conversations matter. Having a conversation with someone who disagrees with you matters. Number 5, fifth observation before we dive into the strategies, is that it's not about being pretty or perfect. The conversations with people who disagree with you don't need to be pretty, and they don't need to be perfect. There probably is no way to make them absolutely perfect. And just understand that this might feel messy. It's going to feel messy when people disagree with you and when they're different than you, but it is not meaningless. It might feel messy, but it's not meaningless. Number 6, this requires courage. Courage. It takes a lot of courage to actually sit down and have a conversation with someone who disagrees with you. And some say that the greatest of any virtue is courage, because if you don't have courage, then love cannot exist and thrive. Let me say that again. If you do not have courage, then love cannot exist and thrive. We need courage for love to be present. So conversations with people who are different than you require a great amount of courage. This courage is required for love, and love is required for any bit of community and any bit of connection or conversation. Last observation before we dive into strategies is that it's not just about yourself. Everything we do is about more than just us. Everything we do is about more than us. So every conversation isn't just about us and our ideals. It is about so many more other people that will be affected by both people at the table. And this is hard but good work, but it is well worth it. So practically, how do we do it? I'm going to give you so many practical tools. I hope you take notes. And if you miss something, please reach out and I can send it to you later. How do we do it? How do we sit across the table from each other and have a genuine conversation and make a genuine connection with someone who sees the world in a completely different way? 15 ways I'm going to give you to build community and diversity and have conversations with people who disagree with you. And this is based on evidence-based research. Number 1, think collaboratively. Think collaboratively. So not just consent, or not just in a way that has a goal of wanting someone to agree with you. Not just seeking consent to your point of view. Approach the conversation as an opportunity to create something together. So this is about how we approach the conversation, how we think about it. Think about creating something. There's a co-creator across the table from you in that conversation. Very important. Number 2, consider the goal. And this is for both people in the conversation, or everyone in the conversation. If you're a team that's having a conversation, you have to consider the goal before even engaging in the conversation. I mentioned it at the beginning, but so much of our happiness and level of satisfaction is tied to our expectations. And people come with different expectations or different goals, you could say, before engaging in a conversation. Pardon me, my Zoom is just having a ball here. Consider the goal. So perhaps that could even be connecting to the person and saying, what are you hoping out of this conversation? What are you hoping to get out of this? What are you hoping to achieve with this? Consider the goal. Number 3, seek to find common ground. And it does exist. Seek to find common ground. How do we do that? You can do that by neutralizing the negative and reinforcing the positive. And if you want to talk a little bit more about that, I'm happy to hop on a call with anyone here, because there's a lot of ways that you can neutralize the negative. But as you neutralize the negative, you begin to kind of take the emotion and begin to see things from a different perspective. So not necessarily in it, but you can describe it as describing something factually. What is happening, not just why or how it feels, but what's happening. Neutralize the negative and reinforcing the positive. Next, invoking curiosity. So this can tend to bring comfort. If you're in a conversation with someone who disagrees with you, be curious. Curiosity is a way to make someone feel comfortable, and it is a way of saying, we're going to discover things together. And so invoke that curiosity. Begin to be curious about things that maybe you've never been curious before, but understand, if you want to build community and connection, people have to feel comfortable. And for them to feel comfortable, You've got to invoke curiosity. Next one is create a safe place for people to come as they are without feeling shamed. So often, some people will not even enter the conversation because they don't feel like they can come as they are. And we have to create this safe place that says, I am not going to start the conversation and make someone feel bad about the way that they think or believe, but I'm going to allow them to come as they are. Understand that for you to do this, you have to know that people can exist in community and have great connection and not think the same or believe the same. This is absolutely possible. In order to create that safe place, you've got to make your focus the other person. So this can't just be about you and your ideas. You've got to make the focus the other person, learning about them. Going back to that last point of being curious about the other person. People love attention and tend to be kinder and more open to our ideas, actually, when our focus is on them. So understand this about the human psyche. We love attention. And when we have it, we're kinder, we're more open. And this allows us to create a better community and a better connection. Next one, slow it down. Slow it down. When people have strong beliefs and strong thoughts, we tend to get faster, and louder. Slow it down. Keep it calm. Keep it slow. This can build trustworthiness, and it also prevents you from triggering defensiveness. So if you find that there's defensiveness that keeps rising in a conversation, look at how fast am I talking? Am I calm? Am I slow? You might want to think about this in terms of like a late night DJ. Everyone has a DJ voice. That's what I believe. I think just channel your inner DJ. But think about that. Slow it down. A calm, soothing voice can actually get you a lot further than a strong tactical argument. So you might be an incredible arguer, but it's not going to necessarily help you build a great connection with someone or build a great community. So exude calm, and the other person, this is really cool, is the other person actually becomes more peaceful. So when you are calm and you slow down, the other person will also slow down as well and begin to be more peaceful. So be what you want to see, right? Put a smile on your face. Okay, especially when you're talking about difficult things. There is obviously a balance in you don't want to be smiling through something that's incredibly sad, that can come across as insensitive. But when it's appropriate, a smile can actually allow people to think quickly and think clearly. And how many of us know that when we think clearly and we're thinking quickly, we're happier, the interaction goes better, it's a lot smoother, we have better connections with each other. So put a smile on your face when appropriate. Be kind. I know this might seem simple, but I'd love to say, I love it when people say that they learn most everything they need to learn in kindergarten. And science will back this up, but really we learned it in kindergarten. Be kind. In a very stressful moment, it's even more important to perhaps be just a little bit kinder and a little bit more mindful of our words and a little bit more gracious. So if you want to know how to live in unity and live in community that is diverse, particularly diverse in thought, start by thinking about how you treat other people. With that, I would say to use an assertive voice rarely. So when we use an assertive tone of voice, it can cause a lot of defensiveness to rise up in people. And that's what we want to try to minimize in order to have community and diversity. The next one is about mirroring. So use a mirror. Some of you might know this, but mirroring is really an incredible tactic to be able to connect with people. So what it looks like is, instead of questioning people, such as really, which brings on defensiveness, mirroring can bring clarity and respect and concern in a good way. So let me show you an example. So if someone says to you, I believe black coffee, this is actually water, by the way. I believe black coffee is better than lattes. I'll keep it neutral here, just for the sake of the exercise. So I'm not going to talk about election examples, but I believe black coffee is better than lattes. Someone says that to you. Instead of saying, really? Which puts the other person on the defensive mode and brings a lack of clarity in the conversation and lack of connection. It also lowers the amount of respect when you question it in a way of saying, really? You could reply instead using mirroring by saying, better than lattes? So notice the inquisitive tone there. It disarms people. Mirroring, it takes a portion of what they said, repeats it, mirrors it back to the other person, and puts it in an inquisitive tone. And the key to mirroring is to have this inquisitive tone, not just a stern questioning tone. So people love to hear their own words. It goes back to what I said before about people love the attention on themselves. It disarms them. It makes them kinder. People love to hear their own words and their own comments. And so as they're communicating to you, this is where active listening can come into play. Truly listen to them. Don't worry about what you're going to say in reply. Just listen to them. People can tell. Repeat back maybe a portion of what they said with some inquisitive tone on it. It puts down their defensiveness, and it also gives them an opportunity to explain their stance, which places value on the other person and increases your ability to connect with them. And I find this to be one of the most incredible ways to even just communicate in general with people who may or may not agree with you. This by no means that you need to agree with the other person, but you are allowing the conversation to deepen when you use mirroring, and you're providing a space for the person to feel comfortable and feel heard and to expand upon things. And what happens when you do this is there is a true connection can really be made when people feel seen and they feel heard. So mirroring words, because the thing is, in psychology, we know this, that we tend to fear what's different than us. And so when you mirror, people see that as similarity. If you used the same phrase they used or the same words they used, again, not in a patronizing or a questioning tone, but more of an inquisitive tone. Remember, we're thinking collaboratively. When they hear their own words, our brain sees that as the person is similar to me. And when people are similar to us, we tend to fear them less. And we need to lower that sense of fear at the table if you're going to genuinely connect with people. So mirroring, it's one of my favorite tactics when it comes to actually having conversations with people who are different than you. And as you mirror the other person's words, remember that you bring yourself closer to the other person. It creates this sense of bond, right? Next one, label. So people often speak out of emotion rather than logic. Now, this is not altogether bad. Emotions are part of our mind. They're part of our being. Emotions are not altogether bad, but there's no real scientific way for people to even engage with logic without emotion. So understand that there's no way to really separate logic and emotion. Our brain is completely interwoven, and emotion is interwoven into the fabric of our very being. We can't just try to ignore them. But they are so intertwined in the tension of our problems. And so the good news when it comes to emotions is that they can be used as tools. but only when they're labeled. So we can't ignore the emotions. We've got to use them, label them in order to have them be used as a tool for good when it comes to connecting and building community. And what's awesome about emotions is they can actually be influenced. So when we label them, we're beginning to influence them. Labeling is a way to move it from just emotion to logic. It's as simple as making a statement about what you notice. So when you hear something, state back, this is what I hear, or what I see and what I hear you saying is, you're creating a label and a statement about what you notice. Now notice I said what, not how, why, or all the things that tend to have to do more with our emotion. What you notice is what you label, not just what you feel. So as the person is talking and you're starting to feel a lot of things, begin to state what you notice. Let what you notice lead the way. Label it. Begin to put words around how you think they feel and see how they respond in agreement or if they move to clarify. So I'm noticing that you said this and it seems you feel this. You're labeling what you see and what you notice. Bring up the labels as statements or inquisitive questions, simply through inflections. And so the way that you say something matters. We know this, right? But you can keep it. You can keep some of the defensive emotion out when you begin to bring the label as a statement or just an inquisitive question, right? We're invoking curiosity. So we're not just there, right, to get someone on our side. We're there to collaborate. We're there to be curious about the other person. And when you label, a label's power is that you give the other person power to try an observation on and then change it if they'd like. And so when you make a label, when you make an observation, say it with the inquisitive tone because you're providing the other person an opportunity to change it. And my goodness, this increases their sense of understanding of themselves and also their sense of connection to you because they begin to see that you want to understand them, right? It's not just about being understood, but seeking to understand the other person. And when you've begun that conversation, the debate sense in it starts to diminish. So we label, we observe, but you say it in an inquisitive tone so that the person has the opportunity to change it and they feel heard, they feel seen. And while we're on this like subject of influencing others and understanding others, in order to do that, this is the next one, talk less and listen more. Talk less and listen and watch more. Eyes, ears open. The more you know about someone, the more you have the power to influence them. So talk less, listen and watch more. And this can be so tempting because when you hear something, right, we all want to reply back. We all want to say what we're thinking in the moment. But as much as possible, connecting and building community and actually influencing and leading is about understanding the other person. And while it might feel like you're not doing anything or that you might be wasting time, it's not. Time spent listening, leaning in, not interrupting, phone down, listening, not just talking, is going to increase that ability to have a real connection with someone, regardless of where they stand on an issue. What's awesome about listening is I think it's one of the greatest ways to truly empathize with someone and to grow the amount of empathy in your life. And that's the next one. If you want to create community and diversity and have genuine, real connections with people who disagree with you, you've got to empathize. If you empathize, you can influence. Empathy is about a commitment to understanding something from another person's point of view. So that doesn't mean that you are going to completely understand it in all its ways, but you are committed to understand it. And that means it might take some time. Empathy is actually about neural resonance. And so maybe we'll take a whole nother webinar to go through neural resonance, but when people truly connect, there's a neural resonance among them. And neural resonance actually disappears when there's poor communication. Now that's a little discouraging, but what can be great about that is the opposite. That means when there's good communication and there's strong empathy, then there's a stronger sense of neural resonance. You're connecting with the other person at a psychological level and an emotional level. And a simple way to increase neural resonance and increase this ability to empathize is by listening. Good listeners, biologically, psychologically, have higher levels of neural resonance. And so if you are at your wit's end, learn to be a good listener. And that means keeping the attention there on the other person, adding to it where necessary, clarifying those questions, clarifying the statements, and keeping that calm voice. All those things that we've talked about up to this point to increase that neural resonance. But this all helps us to build empathy. Empathy is not just about being nice or agreeing. You don't have to agree to have empathy for another person. It is about understanding the other person. Empathy is about understanding the other person. So think about how you would like to treat someone if they were in a car accident, or there was a snowstorm or a natural disaster and there was a flood. How would you treat someone in that scenario? That's probably how you empathize. That's how you begin to treat someone as, in a sense, an equal as a human, because we're all on this journey as humans. And what happens, it's very interesting when there are natural disasters or car accidents or something like that, where people are faced with kind of dangerous situations, or you're in a snowstorm, all the differences in how people think go out the window. And all you care about is that the other person is human, and you want to understand where they're at, meet them where they're at, and help them. And that's how empathy works. You meet them where they're at, regardless of the situation. And without understanding the pain that the other person has gone through, it's very hard to live in community, right? Empathy is about understanding the other person, seeking to understand the pain that another person has gone through. And when we put that effort in, what we're doing is we are building connection and we are building community. So seeking to understand the pain that another person is going through. Next, be vulnerable. So this goes with empathy here, but in order to increase empathy, there has to be at some point this point of vulnerability. So begin to slowly and wisely open up maybe a piece of who you are, maybe a piece of your pain. Because when we let others into our pain, what happens is people begin to see that's okay, and they mirror that back. It's how human behavior works. If you find that you're in a relationship where there's not a lot of vulnerability and not a lot of empathy, have a look and consider, when was the last time both of us were a little bit vulnerable and shared a little bit of our pain and brought that to the table? There has to be this trust that's given in order for it to build. Another one that is, I think, underutilized when it comes to connecting with people is share credit and give recognition. Share credit and give recognition. So we've touched on this a little bit today, a few times, but people love attention. They love to feel heard. They love to hear themselves back. They love credit and attention. And if you want to build community and build connection, it's very important to Share that credit where it's due. Give recognition where it's due. That'll increase the trust level between your team or between the person that you're trying to have that difficult conversation with. So, when was the last time that you actually thanked someone, especially thanking someone who can't do something for you in return? When was the last time? Perhaps right now you can even write down the name of someone who has helped you or did something great and you noticed it, but you didn't tell them. I tell you what, if you want to begin to build rapport with another person and create that community and diversity, begin to share that credit. Even text them right now, or as soon as we hang up the phone here, give them a call and just say, hey, I want to recognize you for this. I want to give credit for this. This helped so much. All of these things help lower our walls between each other and help us find that common ground, which I said earlier does exist. We just need to get to a place where we feel safe enough to find it and to build it. And lastly, I would say be patient. Every bit of research, when you look at people who are building connection and community across difference, shows us that it takes time. And not just time where you're checking your watch and you're putting in the hours, but intentional time, hard work of trying to understand the other person and going into it with a common goal that says we want to find our common ground and I want to understand the other person. I want them to be seen and heard. Whatever it is that your goal is, be patient. Great things always will take hard work and they will take intentional time. Accept that up front. And when it does get difficult, it's okay to take a break and come back to the table and reassess after you've had some sleep and some water. But be patient. Stay engaged. Whatever you do, remember that it is always about more than you. So stay engaged. You don't know what is actually on the other side of that genuine connection. Perhaps as you stay engaged and stay committed and be patient in this work of building community amongst difference, you don't know what's on the other side of that. You might have a national championship on the other side of that. You might have a wonderful team dynamic on the other side of that. You might have your most profitable quarter on the other side of that. You might have a healthy family on the other side of that, or a best friend. When we give up on connecting or on communicating, then we're choosing to lead out of hurt instead of from your heart. Okay, so we don't want to lead a conversation out of hurt. We've got to stay engaged. And in order to do that, we've got to recognize that it's about more than just us. It's okay that it takes time. Give it the time that it needs. Just stay engaged. Everything we do is about more than us. I've said that so many times today because I know that everyone listening on this call has a company, a family, a team, even just your relationship with yourself or the people that you live nearby. It is all connected. And so where we make this connection and build good community, it's about more than just us. Wherever we increase division, it's also about more than just us. So your small action to a teammate that disagrees with you can actually domino effect to your whole team. So it works in both directions. Every time you choose to build community and choose to build connection, it's going to domino effect and play into your whole team. Every time you increase division or refuse to try to understand the other person, it's going to also domino effect. So understand it's about more than just us. Stay engaged. Don't give up. Take a break if you need to, but don't give up. This is hard work, but it is great work and it is well worth it. And it is what causes the makeup of great communities, great societies, great teams, great families, all of it. So I hope something from today helped you. I know I gave you a lot of strategies. If you have questions about any of that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Many of you guys know I'm on Instagram at the Kelley Castle or email kcastle@kcastlehealth.com. I think all of you have that. I'm happy to chat at any point, but understand that I'm with you, I am for you. I hope that out of today, I would love to hear from you this weekend on the one thing that stood out and helped you the most. What one thing from today stood out that you can put into practice? Perhaps it's about talking less and listening more. Perhaps you're going to try to mirror and begin to take a phrase that the other person has said and repeat it back to them and see where the conversation goes from there. Perhaps you're going to learn to label instead of responding just about how you feel. Respond and note what you notice and what you see. All of these things can help build great community and diversity. I 100% believe that it is possible. So don't give up. And I hope to see you back next week. Next week's webinar topic, I'm really excited for this one. This one is about sports and Black Lives Matter. What does Black Lives Matter have to do with sport? So I'm going to be having a conversation with Mary Faustin English, who is a marriage and family therapist and a certified mental performance coach. She has been in this as a therapist for decades. She is phenomenal, has worked with a number of professional teams, including some of my favorite NFL teams, and she's amazing. So the link will be live in my profile in about 15 minutes. So I encourage you to go check it out and sign up for next week's Sports and Black Lives Matter. How does it all connect? How does this all play together? And that's going to be my last webinar for November. And then we're going to be moving to 1 to 2 webinars per month over the holidays and kind of that whole season. And so I really hope that you can take part and invite someone. And if you'd like to talk more or set up a personal or a team coaching session around anything that was spoken about today, I'd love to hear from you, and I would love to support you and your team in any way that I can. So this weekend, I want you to try to have one conversation using a couple of these tactics, and let me know which one you choose. Let me know how it goes. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you so much again for being here. Go enjoy your day. Do something that you love. Do something to celebrate. You made it to Friday. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you guys.